Patricia woke up next to her mother, in her bed, after a restless night. Although her mother seemed shaken upon her arrival, she appeared calmer in a way. A brief conversation with Lisa brought her up to speed on her mother's condition, so she thought it prudent not to ask questions and simply be present. Her mother was exhausted, and they both lay down since it was already quite late, but Patricia noticed that it took her hours to succumb to sleep, spending most of the night sobbing quietly. She got up slowly to avoid waking her, went down to the kitchen, turned on the coffee machine, made a toast, and when she sat at the table, she noticed the keyrings and the wedding ring. None of this made any sense. She had been home the previous weekend with her brother, James, and at no point did it seem there was any problem between her parents. On the contrary, they acted like annoying lovebirds to the point that James turned to them and said, "I'd tell you to get a room, but you already have one," which only provoked laughter. Her father, always present for the family, had taken an extreme action. Why? Had he found someone else and simply jumped ship? That didn't seem likely. What did he mean by going to hell? None of this seemed to make sense. She was finishing her meal when there was a knock at the door. It was Lisa. "Good morning. How is your mother?" "Good morning. She's upstairs sleeping. It took her ages to fall asleep last night, and I don't even know when she'll wake up. Let her sleep. She needs it. When I arrived yesterday, she was in an almost catatonic state, completely in shock. But what happened?" Lisa sighed. "You know, I could tell you, especially since I was involved in all of this. And I don't know if you'll look at me the same way after you know everything, but I shouldn't be the one to tell you. It was something too personal and intimate, and I don't want to put words in your mother's mouth." Patricia looked at her, trying to gauge her words. Was it really that serious? It was. But let's wait for her to wake up and tell you in her own words. "Did your father say anything to you? Did he call?" "I called him yesterday when I was on my way. He answered. He told me he was at the Frankfurt airport waiting for a connecting flight." "A connecting flight? Where to?" "He just told me he was going to hell." Lisa shook her head. "And that he accepted a promotion and that my mother was the reason he accepted it. This isn't my father. He wouldn't do this out of nowhere." Lisa remained silent, unsure of what to say. Of course, she wanted to tell the whole truth, but she knew she couldn't. Patricia would have to hear from her mother herself what had happened, and God knows how she would react. Marie came down the stairs, feeling weak and disoriented, holding on to the walls. She entered the kitchen and could clearly see in Lisa and Patricia's eyes that her appearance must have reflected what she felt inside. "Good morning, Mom," said Patricia, noticing her state and getting up to support her, helping her sit at the table. Marie tried to find the strength to speak but couldn't, simply looking at Lisa, who nodded her head at her with a smile of understanding on her face. "What do you want to eat?" Patricia asked while starting a kettle for tea. Marie shook her head, but her daughter wouldn't have it. "Don't even think about it. I don't want to hear excuses. You're going to eat something, whatever it is. Some toast with butter?" Marie, knowing that protesting wouldn't help and not feeling strong enough to do so, nodded in agreement. It took her time to eat, as she had to force herself, and they hardly spoke. Afterward, they went to the living room and sat down. Marie knew the time had come to talk, but she couldn't even look at her daughter. How was she going to explain this? "Mom, James can't come today because he has an exam tomorrow, but as soon as he finishes the exam, he'll come here." Her mother nodded. The silence returned. It was Patricia who broke it, going straight to the point. "What happened?" Her mother simply broke down in tears, and Lisa immediately went to her, hugging her and staying with her for some time, while Patricia just watched, waiting for an answer. Finally, her mother looked at her, took a deep breath, and began to describe everything that had happened, from the moment she told Alex about the party, what the party was, her omission, and everything that occurred at the party. If Patricia's face initially seemed completely stunned, her expression changed to shock when her mother told her that she had gone out with another man and spent the night with him, although without going into details. "And Dad?" was the only thing she could ask. That was when Lisa started to speak, and if Patricia was already shocked, she became more so with Lisa's description, despite all the omitted details. Tears streamed down her face, and she wore the angriest expression in the world as she looked at her mother, who shrank away at her gaze and sobbed quietly. When Lisa finished, Marie continued, telling her what had happened until she got home and describing both conversations she had with Alex. When she was done, a heavy silence fell. Patricia remained silent, looking at her mother with a simultaneously stunned and angry expression. After what felt like an eternity, she finally said, "How could you? What were you thinking? What did you think was going to happen? Are you crazy? Do you need to be committed?" Her mother let out an anguished cry and got up, running out of the room and taking refuge in her bedroom, where she curled up in bed and stayed there. Her daughter's words were like a final confirmation that she had ruined everything. Patricia sat there, lost in thought. It was Lisa who broke the silence. "I think you understand now why it shouldn't have been me to tell you what happened." Patricia simply nodded. "James is going to freak out. I don't know how long it will take him to forgive her when he finds out. It's going to be bad." Lisa nodded. "Patricia, I know you're shocked, and you have every reason to hate your mother for what she did. Believe me, I understand that more today than I would have yesterday." Patricia looked at her with an inquisitive expression, and she continued, "You know, when I got here yesterday and saw how your mother was, besides calling you, I called my husband and asked him to come, bring something for us to eat, and give some support, even though he only knew your mother in passing. But thanks to this situation and the conversation we had the three of us, a lot of things were put into a perspective that had never crossed my mind, neither for me nor for your mother. And my personal view, you could say, has changed quite a bit." Patricia nodded. "But, precisely because I can see both sides today, I ask you not to judge your mother too harshly until you understand her motivations. But I'm not telling you to excuse her actions. And if you want, I can stay and talk with you so you can understand. Not that you accept it, but that you understand. Or if you prefer, I can go." "No, stay. I need to try to make sense of all this." The truth is that for her, in that moment, nothing made sense.